how did we get here? How did we get to the point where Avi Arad's dream not only became a reality helmed by one of the greatest actors of our generation in Tom Hardy, but spawned 2 sequels, a blink and you'll miss it crossover with the MCU, and the perfect end credit song in Eminem's It's fucking absurd, and yet I couldn't be more for it, because while the first Venom reeked, and I mean reeked, of early 2000s superhero trash which I absolutely love, by the way, it also accidentally stumbled onto something genius, allowing Tom Hardy to do the most maximalist performance ever from jump, having a sequel that throws away its edge in favor of a whole movie that has the gonzo energy of this scene. Everything just began to click. The audience didn't care about Eddie being sad about his divorce and being a struggling reporter. All we wanted to see was Venom coming out of the closet of overindulgent 90s comic book edge to embrace his freak, only to find that his freak matches Eddie's perfectly. That they were made for each other. On paper, hell, even just explaining it to you, that sounds like it shouldn't work. I mean, most of the other shit Sony's been pumping out hasn't worked at all. I mean, I guess Madam Web is so bad that it kind of circles back around to being incredibly funny and good. Regardless, it doesn't work.
He was in the Amazon with my mother when she was researching spiders just before she died.
But Venom has that it factor, man. It has the spark that keeps us coming back. It allows itself to be something that so many comic book movies are terrified of being. Goofy. And Sony is at the point where, at least with Venom, they're ready to have that be the main thrust of this franchise. Wisely so. Just run this thing on what fucking works, and that's Tom Hardy acting against Tom Hardy. And Venom 3 looks to be building off of Venom 1 and 2 in a spectacular fashion. It allows us to see their relationship continue to blossom while adding a threat the likes of which they've never faced before. The actual plot of this film doesn't matter, but you know what? It revolves around the government hunting down Eddie and Venom to destroy symbiotes, and also the Xenophage coming to literally eat Venom. It shows a peak in the I don't give a shit attitude Sony has given to these movies, and it's a glorious, I guess, disaster to watch. It's not really a disaster. I mean, like, I don't know, these movies are truly something else. That weird intersection of intentionally cynical corporate studio bullshit, but also, despite all of that, it kind of works because of the lead. I mean, sure, I'm here for it, man. It's almost as disastrous as it is for those poor bastards who get their heads bitten off in the trailer. And if you want to keep your head and strengthen that big brain of yours, you're going to want to try out Brilliant. You've probably heard me talk about Brilliant before, and for good reason, because I love them. It is my favorite learning platform because it's designed to be uniquely effective for each individual who uses it. I use it in my daily life. It's helped me learn things and get in tune with my math, science, like logical thinking side that I tend to neglect because, you know what, I'm a creative, so damn it, I'm gonna be creative.
I think I'm Pablo Picasso. No!
And while Brilliant might not have a course on how to spearhead a successful cinematic universe, something Sony desperately needs, they do have insanely useful ones for math, science, even programming, where you can get familiar with Python or how LLMs work. And if your first thought was,
how does that work?
Not to worry, because each course welcomes learners at every level and teaches you the specified skill set in a way that's both engaging and interactive, to keep you interested and immersed in the material. Their first principles approach helps you build an understanding of the material from the ground up by filling every lesson with hands-on problem solving. In so doing, Brilliant helps you not only to learn, but retain concepts by building your critical thinking skills through problem solving, not memorizing. So while you're building real knowledge on specific topics, you're also strengthening your brain in general, and each lesson is designed to fit into any schedule so you can ease yourself into habitual learning, or even just a few minutes a day.
Holy cow.
So quit doom scrolling and try Brilliant for free for a full 30 days by visiting brilliant.org/filmspeak, or click the link in the description of this video to give learning a trial run, as well as receive 20% off an annual premium subscription. That's brilliant.org/filmspeak, or click the link in the description for a full 30-day free trial of Brilliant. And if you sign up for an annual premium subscription, you'll get 20% off. Seriously, guys, you know how much I love Brilliant. Take advantage of this. They are amazing. And thank you so much to Brilliant, as always, for sponsoring this video. But let's talk about that continuity, that oh so irrelevant continuity that's got everyone up in whatever. The main thing everyone's been obsessing about when it's come to the Venom 3 trailer is the symbiotes and the scene of the bar that is reminiscent to the scene that we saw at the end of No Way Home. And like, how is that there? And also, why is Chiwetel Ejiofor there? Is he Baron Mordo in this or no? And I actually think it's much more straightforward than people are making it out to be. Look, it's pretty clear that Sony shattered whatever small amount of continuity they had on their own movies, and even within the MCU with what they show us in this trailer. Like I said, I think it's going to be very straightforward. There's going to be some multiversal alternate reality shit that essentially explains why Christopher is in a bar with a symbiote in the exact same spot as it was in the No Way Home's end credit scene. I mean, it could really just come down to a joke like, hey, we got some more Venom in the back, or something stupid like that. Probably not, but you know what? Who cares, really? Because there's just so many stupid explanations as for why that is why it is. Maybe they'll try and loop it back around and tie it into stuff that's going on in No Way Home, but something tells me that Kevin Feige doesn't really want whatever the fuck is going on over in the Venomverse to cross over into the MCU, at least in any meaningful way.
Oh yeah, we got more friends! Awesome!
Tom Hardy showing up in No Way Home is about the closest we're gonna get to that actually being a reality. And then when it comes to Chiwetel Ejiofor, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that they're just using the face of an actor in the MCU in order to get people asking questions, especially if you're gonna put him in a Venom movie. Like, Sony fully knew what they were doing casting Chiwetel Ejiofor in this film. And then there's Rhys Ifans, who, I mean, I guess we have to assume that he's playing Kurt Connors in this movie, or at least a variant of him, or something, maybe. And what's more likely is that maybe he's playing a Kurt Connors who's been cured because of the events of No Way Home. I mean, that would make sense, and that would actually be a cool way of engaging with the events of that film, specifically through the lens of a villain who was in that film, who is now not a villain. And obviously he won't have any memories of what happened. He doesn't even know who Peter Parker is at this point. But just the idea of seeing Kurt Connors in here could be interesting depending on what they do with him. Or it could be something similar to what they're doing with Chiwetel Ejiofor, which is just casting an actor who's known for playing a certain character in these Marvel movies and then making you scratch your head, ask questions, get your butts in seats. Like, again, Sony marketing back on their bullshit. But look, it doesn't matter. There's a fucking Venom horse, and that's really all we care about here. We are hitting full bonanza blockbuster status, embracing the absurdity of comic books that most studios are afraid to go anywhere near anymore, mostly because they don't consistently become hits. And in their defense, Venom only accidentally became a hit. But regardless, I think Sony's strange success with Venom is what led them to allow Hardy more leeway with the unhinged swings he takes with his performance, and with that as their North Star, the filmmakers behind the wheel were able to play with story and tone in weird new ways. Hardy is also the anchor that allows someone like first-time director Kelly Marcel, who's written all of the Venom films prior, by the way, to go absolutely hog wild in the director's chair. I mean, she is someone Hardy has a very close professional relationship with. They've done stuff in the theater together. She's obviously been a driving force behind these Venom films, so it only feels right to put her in the director's chair. That's kind of fun and encouraging, and to see that relationship eventually amount to what it's going to be with this film. And I don't think you get that if the studio doesn't have confidence in the success of these movies and what Tom Hardy is doing with the character, because that is what's gonna get butts in seats. Something else that is very clear in this trailer is, even though a bunch of shit is going to be happening in the plot, the emotional core is what drives it all forward. It's that relationship between Eddie and Venom. Are they going to make it out okay? And I was a bit surprised at how much I actually care about these two, about how much I've grown attached to them over the course of, well, I guess it's gonna be 3 films now. It almost feels like yesterday that these movies started coming out and have just kind of become the weird anomaly that they are. I mean, it's kind of strange to say, but like Tom Hardy as Venom is an all-time superhero character performance. Like, it just is like, it's so out there, it's so distinct, it's memorable, it's something that we just really latch onto and have become endeared to. We just want to see Eddie and Venom kiss and make up and just be all right. But from the sounds of it, The Last Dance is going to be just that, a dance. Well, you know, maybe not literally, although we definitely see that Venom and Mrs. Chen got the moves. That's gonna be a weird fever dream sequence, calling it right now. A scenario where we have potentially 3 different factions converging in on Venom and Eddie as they have to outmaneuver them and win the day, or protect a 10-year-old Peter Parker if you believe the rumors. God, I really hope that's not the case. The first faction at play, which was already rumored and seems to have been all but confirmed here, is the Jury, led by Orwell Taylor, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, not playing Baron Mordo. The trailer, paired with the rumors provided to us generously by 3C Films, hints at Taylor's unwavering determination to destroy all symbiotes because of Carnage's rampage in the second film, leading to the death of his son. Rumors are saying that characters like Toxin are going to be in this film, and there are a few ways I could see them using him. Oh, and by the way, Toxin would potentially be the second faction going after Venom. There's a lot of pieces on the board with this, just stay with me. In scenario 1, Toxin and his symbiotes could be weaponized by Taylor and his legion of vigilantes, aka what I'm calling Task Force V. Boo! He's doing this as a means to not just hunt down Venom, but the entire symbiote race. Well, at least on Earth. We see Taylor and Juno Temple walking past different symbiotes, presumably in their possession, which lends credence to the theory of the Jury using the power of the enemy to eradicate the enemy. Then there's scenario 2, which is more closely aligned with the initial rumors reported by 3C. It said that Toxin is going to spawn these offshoots, essentially forming a symbiote horde on Earth. Toxin, of course, being Stephen Graham's Detective Mulligan from Let There Be Carnage, who was infected with the symbiote spawn of Carnage. Similar to Taylor, he's vowed to destroy all monsters, which I guess is broader than symbiotes, but like, honestly, what's the difference? Whatever. And through his symbiote infection becomes Toxin. But instead of Toxin or Mulligan simply being bad, I feel like he'll likely think that he's the good guy by virtue of the fact that he's a former cop who is trying to stop Cletus Cassidy and save San Francisco, who still holds a sense of duty to protect the city. Just this time, is protecting the city by ridding it of all the monsters because of the events of
Let there be carnage.
He's just harnessing the power of the symbiotes to do so. Mulligan becomes poisoned by the symbiote, so his worst impulses and biases and I guess just innate hatred for these creatures takes a front seat. He becomes poisonous or toxic in his quest, hence Toxin. Hence him spreading the symbiotes and infecting others, hence more symbiotes in the movie because
It's showtime, freaks.
and this is essentially how we would get characters like Scream, who is rumored to be in the film, and from the trailer it looks like her symbiote is definitely present. It's likely the Scream symbiote will bond with Juno Temple's character, who's also rumored to be in a relationship with Eddie in the film, adding another wrinkle into the mix, maybe making Eddie choose between saving the woman that he loves or the symbiote that he loves, or some sort of thing. I feel like there's gonna have to be a choice here that Eddie or Venom is going to have to make. The symbiotes, led by Toxin, would then go after Venom for their own personal vendetta. But going back to that original theory of Taylor essentially weaponizing the symbiotes for his mission, there's a scenario where these symbiotes are being controlled by Taylor, and maybe they have to break out of his control, leading to Toxin and these symbiotes maybe constantly shifting allegiances. Are they with Taylor? Are they kind of separate from him? Who knows? Then they in turn would go after Venom as well, trying to take him down for not letting them take their rightful place on Earth, but each of them would be fighting for constantly shifting reasons. Then, of course, there's also the Xenophage, which is a creature from the comics that exists exclusively to eat symbiotes. So someone's pissed at Venom from outer space, and I think we can all guess who that is. So, maybe it's not just Venom who's getting picked off, but all of them are getting picked off. So now, not only are Venom and Eddie being hunted down by Earthlings, but the entire universe is out to get them. All of this may be compounded by another rumor that Eddie is going to be protecting a 10-year-old Peter Parker in this film. I don't think that's going to happen. I really hope it doesn't happen, but they gave us infant Peter Parker and Madam Web, so I guess anything is on the table. And I know this all sounds like a huge confusing mess, and that I have no idea what I'm talking about, and that's because I really don't. I'm just kind of speculating based on stuff that I know and based on what's already in front of me in the trailer. And also, this whole movie just sounds like a fucking mess. Come on, really? How you tell all of this with that many moving parts and a 2-hour runtime is beyond me. But you know what? I'm here for it. And if any franchise has the juice to pull it off, it's Venom. Then there's a potential third faction going after Venom in Null. I'll admit this is the least likely of factions to be at play in the film because it would have already needed to be set up to be genuinely effective. But this is also Sony we're talking about here, so it's not beneath them to just kind of shove shit in there and just hope it works. There's clearly an attack coming from Clintar, Venom's home planet, that the military is trying to prepare for. This could mean that we are potentially going to get a bit of the King in Black storyline and even possibly have our big bad in Null, the Symbiote King. Null could see Venom's failure on Earth as a form of treason, worsened by his connection to Eddie, which has made him weak in the eyes of this big king. This, along with his superiority complex, could set in motion a potential invasion of Earth. Since the first movie, when Riot tried to bring the symbiote race to Earth so that he, and presumably Null, could enslave and kill all of humanity, this intergalactic threat has always loomed large over Venom and Eddie. And now, it's time for them to come face to face with it. This could also tie into Toxin, because everything ties into Toxin with this, because that's just what the theories are at the moment. Similar to how Toxin could potentially be used by Taylor to achieve his goals, Null could do the same, weaponizing the hive mind and Toxin and his legion of symbiotes to kill Venom and prepare the Earth for their arrival. I mean, it looks like the arrival to Earth scene from Transformers, so I don't know, maybe there's a scenario where it's like the arrival to Earth, but it's symbiotes.
I'm going to fucking come.
Null would control their minds like a Dracula and Renfield-like toxic relationship, which truthfully gets at the heart of what I feel this film will ultimately be about and what this series has ultimately been about. Essentially, I think this film, and the Venom movies in general, can be boiled down to toxic and symbiotic relationships in their various forms. Venom and Eddie have achieved symbiosis after the events of Let There Be Carnage. They have a healthy relationship, and symbolically, people see their happiness as a threat because of their own baggage. Every force that hates them both is trying to tear them apart, and many of these forces have a toxic relationship with either grief in the case of Taylor, duty in the case of Mulligan, Toxin, power and superiority in the case of Null, if you believe he'll be in the film. People view Eddie and Venom as a monster, but only because they are effective as a unit. They exist outside of the norm for both of their kind, and that scares people. There's a reason that Venom kind of works as a typical movie monster story, just with a bit of flash from the superhero genre, and that's because that's what it is, and I think that's part of the reason why these films have lasted as long as they have, and a big reason why this interpretation of the character has amassed such a big following in the queer community. Eddie and Venom balance each other out. They complement their strengths and weaknesses and understand how to have a two-way relationship instead of a one-way. Thematically, I don't think it's hard to see this as an allegory for the persecution of queer rights by people who are so miserable with their own lives that they can't stomach the happiness of others. This repression of acceptance in who you are and in stuff that's happened to you. The series has been a journey for both Venom and Eddie to find their happiness, their symbiosis in each other by embracing who they are and the bond they have together for what it is. Eddie and Venom both start out as huge losers, massive losers, trying to be someone that they're not until fate has other plans. They're at a point where it feels like they've lost everything. The first two Venom movies forged a path for Eddie that allowed him to grow, to be honest and selfless with someone else again, to feel like himself, and then learn how to trust and be in a healthy relationship with that person. It just so happens that that person is an alien goo monster, but you know what? Love is love, man, and that's the beauty of fucking Venom. Now we finally get to see them together and happy. They may have their problems they have to work through like any couple. They might be stepping on each other's toes when they're saying their catchphrase at the same time, but you know what? Love will always have its struggles. But now that Eddie and Venom have accepted each other, it seems like everything in the universe is trying to tear them apart. Will they succeed? Will Venom or Eddie sacrifice themselves or the other? It's entirely likely, hell, even probable, given the film's tagline of "Till death do us part." Also that line from the trailer where Eddie's like,
"You may not make it out of this alive, buddy."
When the first Venom movie came out, there was no way in hell anyone predicted that the last in the trilogy would be titled The Last Dance. Hell, people probably didn't even think that we were going to get 3 Venom movies that never in any way connected to Spider-Man. I mean, I sure as hell didn't, but yet, here in some bizarro universe, that's exactly what happened. I think many of us wanted to see Hardy's Venom and a Spider-Man, doesn't really matter who, but just a Spider-Man, come face to face at some point. Have this trilogy culminate to the face-off everyone's wanted to see. But after watching this trailer, I couldn't think of a better, more confoundingly fitting end to the strangest superhero trilogy ever created. And it's done so using the classic trilogy format. A first film that sets the stage but doesn't know how big of a swing it's allowed to take, plays it safe, but sets up the world, the threat, and the hero becomes the hero at the end of the day. Then they followed it up with a sequel that goes for a big swing where the hero faces their most iconic antagonist and essentially defines what these films should be, carrying over what worked about the first film and making it even better in the second. Then we get the trilogy capper, the film that circles back to the threats established in the first film, overtaken by a new evil as the result of the events of the second film. Oh, and it's bigger, world-ending stakes, and will bring the story of our heroes full circle. This is all done to up the stakes to a point that we've never seen before, and the hero is also at a totally different point in their life than they've ever been before. There's probably been some passage of time or whatever. It may not have been planned from the start, but you know what? I'll be damned that by the end of Venom The Last Dance, we're all going to feel like, hey, maybe this was planned from the beginning. Maybe this was always the end point for these characters. This was always the intention from the beginning. And it's so exciting to see what they're going to do with it. It's truly insane and wonderful that we've gotten here. Venom came to Earth to prove that he wasn't a loser. He then found love in Eddie. They overcame their relationship struggles, fought not one but 2 different evil versions of himself, and probably a third by the time this is all said and done, and now has achieved symbiosis with Eddie. No one was predicting the Venom movies to be a love story. No one was predicting the Venom movies to be as fun as they are. But over the last few years, we have been graced with their presence, and you know what, man? It's a tonic to the modern landscape of Superman cinema, and I'm all here for it. Whatever they throw at us, be it a symbiote horde, an attack from Null, or even just Eddie, Venom, and Mrs. Chen sitting down at Margaritaville in Las Vegas for a nice meal for like an hour of the runtime, they have my ass in a seat and locked the fuck in. It's so refreshing to get to go and see something so ludicrous done with these Marvel comic characters that over in the MCU are played so safe. So, you know what, man? You be you, Eddie and Venom. I'm so excited to see you dance your last dance.